This is one of the stupidest things I've heard people say. Like, this is a common statement that gets thrown. I think it's so dumb. Do Christians really need to radically change? I'll just start reading. I can easily identify with the academic who reckons the British have no problem with people being religious as long as it doesn't intrude into public affairs. I get the feeling that Kate Forbes, MSP, would say that it chimes with her experience too. Talking recently to the BBC religion editor, she suggested that people of faith are in the minority and in their experiences are by and large fearful, and they either feel like they have to hide their faith or adapt it, and that is a cause for concern. In fact, she seems to think that people of faith are being squeezed out of political life. Go.
Yeah, I would say this is obviously in Britain or the UK, it's not an American article, but I think it is relative to the political sphere as a whole. And the slogan of separation of church and state gets thrown around whenever somebody is a person of faith, and it doesn't even matter what faith they are. If their religion is influencing their policy, then that equals inherently wrong in the political conversation. And I think that couldn't be farther from the truth. We all allow our values to influence our political decisions, and especially in a democracy, a republic like we have in the United States. If you're worried about people who are religious, putting into law things that are in alignment with their religion, then you're probably going to have to just move, because this is how democracy works. The majority vote gets the win. So this is why I think the United States especially is a beautiful place when we're speaking politically, because if you're somebody who has, maybe some further left-wing ideals, you can find somewhere in the United States where you can live in harmony with those ideals, right? It's same thing if you have somebody who's more conservative, you can find somewhere in the United States to live that is more in alignment with your values. So I don't think that we need to radically change in order to fit. I think we should still be voting with our values. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we shouldn't be trying to change our faith or change our values when it comes to the political life, because at the end of the day, politics is just legalized morality. It's some sort of government fleshing out what they say is right and wrong, taboos of culture, all that stuff, and that is inspired by moral philosophy, and moral philosophy is derived by ideological beliefs, and ideological beliefs go back to religious beliefs. And so if we're going to have any sort of real discussion in politics, we're going to have any sort of real discussion when it comes to what should be legal and not legal and stuff within a society, we need to talk about religion. We need to talk about what we truly believe. And within a democracy especially, we need to hear people's thoughts and beliefs on that topic. So most definitely, we need to not radically change. We need to continually speak out in that regard.
Yeah, if you keep reading, it says, put simply, most people seem to think that religion is okay as long as religious people keep their faith to themselves. And that's something that I've definitely heard.
Yeah, this is one of the stupidest things I've heard people say. Like, this is a common statement that gets thrown. I think it's so dumb. Yeah. So here, let me rephrase it. It's okay for you to be the religion that you are, except you can't practice those things that I disagree with.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you're not telling me it's okay for me to be the religion that I'm at. Like, you can't have your cake and eat it.
Right. It's okay for me to be the religion that you want me to be, but right. you just make that statement to make it sound more palatable to me. But if I'm reading through the lines, you're just saying you can do you, but unless you come up to me and state XYZ, oh, no, do you, but don't do X, Y, Z.
Once you start interfering with my world,
Mhm.
then that becomes an issue. Like I'm not necessarily for the idea of like legislating Sunday church or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
But because I'm not a theonomist, I don't believe in theonomy. But
Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit trail.
like even this concept, like just think about like even this concept of the separation of church and state. Like where the heck is that found?
It's not found in the Constitution. It's actually found in a letter written by, I believe it was Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't even talking about the separation of church and state in the way that that the slogan is used to say, "Hey, religion, stay out of politics." That's not what it is. The separation of church and state was so that way they didn't have a repeat of like a Church of England situation. You know, I forget who it was, but somebody. One of the founding fathers, I guess, suggested that a certain denomination should be the religion of the country, and they were like, no. We're not repeating.
We're not going
this
backwards.
stuff.
Yeah. And a big part of that too was the fact that even if you look at the Constitution and look at the early founding documents of the country, you can tell there was a theism bias within how the things were written. They were written with religious wording and phrasing. So quite clearly, the founding fathers didn't think that religion and God should stay out of politics. Quite the opposite. They thought religion and God should be involved in politics in some way, shape, or form. They just didn't think that there should be a Church of England or a Pope or something along those lines that controlled the political atmosphere entirely.
Well, yeah, it was one thing a lot of people maybe don't understand, and Americans, particularly modern Americans, don't understand that the founding fathers would have understood, is that the Church of England is led, the head of the Church of England, the Anglican Church's head, is the King of England, right? And so this is the world where they were in, and they said, we don't want that. We don't want to have the state leadership, like the president of the country, for example, be the head of the church. And so that's the sort of separation they wanted. But the fact that Congress is printing Bibles, like even think about the concept like of a conversation happening in Congress right now where they're like, hey, we're going to print 200,000 Bibles to pass out. Like people would lose their minds. But that was a thing that was happening in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it just in the Declaration of Independence, the word "creator" is in there, right?
Correct.
That when they mentioned the Creator, we are endowed with these rights by our Creator.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think that Creator means? It means God, right? Like it's pretty obvious. The Declaration of Independence that the people who started this country off in the way that it is believed in God, right? And
if you ask for Sir Dawkins, as far as the Creator goes, it could have been aliens. So
oh yeah, definitely, that's true. From a comet or something.
Yeah, he can keep his opinions to himself. The reality is that any historian that's worth anything is going to say, hey, here are the facts. You get some of the you get a good amount of the founders actually being Christians of various sorts. And then you get some of them who are deists, like a Jefferson or a Franklin or something like that.
Right.
But some of them are like pretty radical guys. Like John Jay is probably one of the more radical founding fathers who ended up being governor of New York. And actually John Jay had slavery outlawed in New York in like 1789 or something, or 87. Like it's very early on. But John Jay had some really radical beliefs. Like he didn't think Catholics should hold office. So there's, whenever people say, oh, they weren't religious, I'm like, no, man, they were like radically religious. Like, look at this guy. He didn't even think Catholics should hold office.
Wow. But you'll have some, you'll definitely have some people agree with that, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a legitimate conversation that's been had because I don't think that there's ever been a president of the country that's been an atheist of the United States.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Like everybody claims religion. Like practically they might have been, or they might have been lying. Like I don't want to get into that. I just want to take them for their word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even even the guy that's in office now, he says he's Catholic.
He says he's a Catholic.
He says he's Catholic. Just like Hunter Biden says he never did drugs in his life. It's just we never really know the truth.
Oh man,
he doesn't say he's Catholic. It's like it's mumbled, and you just have to piece it together and assume that he's saying he's Catholic.
Okay, moving on.
Yep.
This article goes on to say, I found myself thinking that like this when I read a recent article on the writings of a Roman administrator, Pliny the Younger. Pliny lived at the turn of the 2nd century, about 110 AD, and he was trying to figure out how he should react to the growing Christian influence in his area. In Martin Whittock's words, Pliny was being confronted by the extraordinary radical community that was making waves due to both what it believed and how it lived. Among other things, Christians refused to subscribe to the imperial cult, focused on the emperor. This was a direct challenge to Roman imperial ideology and led to trouble. This was where religious belief became very political indeed. Correct, because Christians were accused and killed at times for being atheists, in denial of the Roman gods, including the emperor being a god.
Mm-hmm.
But I like this part that it mentions this extraordinary radical community, both in what they believed and how they lived, because they did live a certain way that was
countercultural. And I don't think that has changed. I think that in America, we have been blessed with a Christian nation, like for a while, where Christianity was the accepted religion of the United States, even though we have like freedom of religion, but it was still, the white evangelical country, as so they say, right? But it's definitely shifted, and when you continue to hold to the values of your Christianity, you become countercultural really, really fast, especially in how rapidly things are moving in the political environment today.
The Christian values or the Christianity that was being held in the mid 1900s, even a little bit early 1900s, was a pretty empty shell. It was a lot of people identified with Christianity and they identified with some of the moral values, but as far as actually taking it to heart and fleshing it out and being serious about it, it was just more cultural. And then it ended up leading to the 60s and the whole sexual revolution, and then postmodernism entered into the chat in mid 1900s. So like, yeah, it was pretty much an empty shell leading to the explosion after the 60s of postmodernism and all that.
This isn't new, guys, right? Like this is like, if you know church history, this is not new. Just before we theologize anything, because we do disagree on theology a little bit. But so when John says in 1 John, right, they were among us, but they were not of us, it very clearly communicates that there are individuals who are in the church or who could be in the church, but not actually be Christians.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's clear as day. When you have Augustine in the 4th century writing, and he's talking about the visible and the invisible church, like the remnant versus, like you see this in the Old Testament in regards to the remnant versus like the general public. This has always been the case when it comes to the people of God. The people of God are countercultural, I would say, in two ways. One of it is that they're countercultural to their own religious community and culture. So like Jesus is calling religious people to repentance, let's remember, right? Like these people claim to be religious. And then it's countercultural to the ways of the world affairs, the earthly way of thinking that is contrary to God. So the actual Christian, the real believer in Christ and follower of Christ, has to be prophetic to two groups of people at the very least. Those who are with us in name, you could say, but don't really adhere to the strictness or the real commitment to Jesus, and those who just are against.
Thanks for watching today. This has been a production of the Why Jesus Network. If you want to make sure you're up to date on everything we're doing, hit that subscribe button, and if you want to know when we go live next, turn on the bell for notifications. If you want to see the full podcast where this clip came from, click right on the screen now. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.